Hi, everyone. This week is the 24th week in Ordinary Time. Ordinary Time is green because we are growing in our understanding of Jesus and his teachings. This week's Gospel is from the Gospel of Mark. Jesus and his disciples set out for the villages of Caesarea and Philippi. Along the way, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that I am?" They said in reply, "John the Baptist. Others Elijah. Still others one of the prophets." And he asked them, "But who do you say that I am?" Peter said to him in reply, "You are the Christ." Then he warned them not to tell anyone about him. He began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer greatly and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, and be killed and rise after 3 days. He spoke this openly. Then Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. At this, he turned around and, looking at his disciples, rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan. You are thinking not as God does, but as human beings do." He summoned the crowd with his disciples and said to them, "Whoever wishes to come after me must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake and that of the gospel will save it." In this week's gospel, Jesus asks his disciples who others say he is. After healing people, feeding a crowd of thousands, and teaching, who did the people who watched everything say he was? The people were trying to see who Jesus was like. Some said he was like John the Baptist, because John told everyone to turn back to God. Some said Jesus was like Elijah, who was a prophet who worked many miracles with God's help and came to hear the quiet voice of God. Here he is with a chariot of fire that took him up to heaven at the end of his life. And others said one of the prophets, perhaps Elisha, who also worked many miracles with God's help. After hearing what others thought, Jesus wanted to know what his disciples thought. Peter said he is the Christ. What does that mean? The Christ is the person who would bring God's presence to earth and make things better for God's people and eventually everyone else too. Before Jesus, most people thought this person would be strong, maybe a king, maybe leading an army. So Jesus completely surprised his disciples when he said that he was going to suffer and be killed. That didn't sound like a victorious ruler. Peter pulled Jesus aside and said that must not be true. But Jesus told Peter to stop that thinking, because that is the way people think, and not God. For God, Jesus' suffering is victory because he showed what it really meant to love others and stay in God's love and not fight back and hurt others. Jesus then told everyone that following him and giving up things in their lives was actually a way to really live. By following Jesus and loving those around us, we may give up some of our power, and we may not look like a victorious ruler, but we join Jesus in showing the true power of God's love. If we don't, we miss out on a life with Jesus and God's love. So who do you say Jesus is? How is he victorious? Are you ready to join in his way of living, which may not look like victory in the way we are used to seeing things?